All right. How's everybody doing tonight on this Wednesday night? I hope everybody's staying warm. I've I've heard that snow is happening in places that never had much snow forecast before. So hope you guys are staying warm. My name is 12 Gauge, and welcome to my channel, 12 Gauge Investigative. If you're new here, thank you for being here. Feel free to come into the chat if you've just started watching the channel. Like I tell people, this is a safe place to land. We do agree to disagree, and we do talk about a lot of things that some other channels may or may not talk about. We get into the very specific on true crime. At least I try to. I try not to censor my presentation by using politically correct things. So, if you're not into that, I guess this is not the place for you. You know, um, I was hoping to have a guest on tonight. I still might possibly. I don't know how to get in touch with him, so I don't even know what time it is over there where he's at. But if he shows up, we'll be able to talk with him as well. And if not, I have a little bit of things to talk about. First and foremost, did you guys watch um, the hearing today? If you didn't, we can rewatch that a little bit, and I can commentate on basically what I've heard them say. Um, there's not a lot to really talk about, but you know, you never know. Some people may have not got to see it, and it would be pretty good to go over until the individual that I'm hoping shows up. So, what do y'all think about the process of how the hearings are going, how everything's progressing throughout these things? Do you believe that justice is being served, or do you believe that there's still a lot of things that you don't know, that you don't understand, that you still need a little bit of explanation for? I mean, because let's be let's be honest, if you're not really into understanding the criminal justice process or almost a damn near lawyer, it's hard to really decipher exactly what's going on if you don't understand all the lingo. But I was watching it, I was thinking, um, to me, it sounds like the defense or the defendant is wanting things to be public now, that as the judge was referring to wanting to have the trial tried in a public forum where um before they were asking for the gag order. Hey Nina, would you like to come up until my guest gets here or not? That's fine. Because I believe that very early on the defense was worried about a fair trial. They were talking about a fair trial. And whenever the trial got moved to Ada County, things started to really change a little bit. The judge seemed to be a little harsher on things. He seemed to be a little more direct and wanting his situation to move along. You know, which I kind of wish that this individual would have been around at the very beginning. We would have already had this probably done and wrapped up and on with the show. You know what I mean? One thing that I hope that you do understand through these situational hearings that we're having, it is just protocol, the process leading up to the trial. As he said today, you know, the suppression hearings would be just about um, suppressing evidence that may or may not even enter the trial, may not even be relevant to the case. You know, in the Franks hearing, he was talking about, you know, that being a situation that may or may not even have anything to do with the case. So, um, let's go ahead and watch this a little bit. And if you have questions, please put stars and your question, and I'll try to answer it the best I can. Like I said, I'm still new to all this, but I'll answer it the best I can. All right, here we go. I was wondering if he was ever going to speak. I was like, come on, bro.
The defendant has been excused from appearing. The defendant himself has been excused from appearing today. With us also are petitioners, counsel representing petitioners, Ms. Olson and Mr. Pedersen. Today's hearing was set to address the interested parties' petition to be heard as interested parties related to the court's closure of a portion of the hearing set for Thursday and Friday. So with that, I will let, whether it's, I'm not sure if Ms. Olson or Mr. Peterson is addressing the court today, but whomever is may address the court.
Thank you, Your Honor. It will be Ms. Olson on behalf of the interested parties who are various media organizations and professional journalist organizations with a history of covering the proceedings in this case. And the interested parties thank the court for this opportunity to address this issue regarding press and public access to the hearings that are scheduled to start tomorrow at 9 a.m. Your Honor, as the court knows, the United States Supreme Court has long acknowledged that the First Amendment protects the rights of the public and the press to attend criminal proceedings. And while few cases in Idaho have dealt directly with public access to pretrial proceedings, and in particular suppression hearings, at the federal level, both the United States Supreme Court in Waller versus Georgia and the Ninth Circuit in Associated Press versus U.S. District Court for the Central District of California and in United States versus Brooklier have addressed the issue. Waller did so in the Sixth Amendment context. Brooklier found that the First Amendment right of access extends to suppression hearings, and in Associated Press, the Ninth Circuit extended the logic in Brooklier to pretrial filings, writing in the very first part of its opinion, there is no reason to distinguish between pretrial proceedings and the documents filed in regard to them. Notably, both Associated Press and Brooklier involved high publicity, highly public defendants and charges. Associated Press involved federal narcotics charges against, among others, John DeLorean, and the Brooklier case involved a RICO prosecution against members of the criminal enterprise La Cosa Nostra. Waller, in particular, in its decision, sets out the benefits that the U.S. Supreme Court has seen in its various decisions that arise from public proceedings in criminal cases. It notes that in Gannett, a case in which the United States Supreme Court looked at but did not decide the issue of press access to suppression hearings, that the requirement of a public trial is for the benefit of the.
If you're confused about what they're talking about, I would believe that they're discussing a little bit about being open to the public about what the suppression evidence would be. That way the public would be able to see what they're asking to be suppressed. And it's almost like saying, well, we're asking for this evidence to be suppressed, and you get to see the argument about why the evidence should be suppressed versus trying to keep it, you know, trying to keep that in the hearing, so
The accused, that the public may see he is fairly dealt with and not unjustly condemned, and that the presence of interested spectators may keep his triers keenly alive to a sense of their responsibility and the importance of their functions. And in turn quoted other cases. In addition to ensuring that the judge and the prosecutor carry out their duties responsibly, a public trial and public proceedings encourage witnesses to come forward and discourages perjury.
okay. If you remember, Judge, at the very beginning, they were talking about gag order, so they gagged everything, they sealed everything to protect the integrity of the jury, which means that they don't want so much information getting out into the public realm that Mr. Koberger will not get a fair trial. So everything's been sealed pretty much. Everything's been gagged. So what they're asking, the defense is asking now, is they're wanting to open this up for the public to be able to see what is being asked to be suppressed, in my opinion. I could be wrong, but that's what I'm getting so far. So they're like going back and forth with what they're wanting. And that's kind of confusing a little bit, because how can you say you want this and then all of a sudden you say no, we want this? It's like, it's almost like playing that chess game, well, if I feel, that I'm not getting what I want, then I want to ask for something else. Hey, Latina, thank you for being in here. So that's what she's saying right now, so to speak, and the judge is gonna clarify here in a minute.
Your Honor, prior to closing a criminal proceeding, the court must afford those excluded from the proceeding a reasonable opportunity to state their objections. We appreciate the court providing us that opportunity here. And the court must also comply with the requirements set out in Press Enterprise 2 before it can close those proceedings. A criminal proceeding can only be closed if the court makes specific findings on the record as required by that case. And those specific findings need to be sufficient in writings, insufficient so that a party excluded can challenge them. The Ninth Circuit has explained that a court cannot be closed in criminal proceedings unless such closure serves a public interest. There's a substantial probability that in the absence of closure, this compelling interest would be harmed, and that there are no alternatives to closure.
Let me give you the definition of suppression here per Google. So that way you have a little more understanding of what the suppression hearing is. Because what you're talking about to a lot of people are just gibberish if you don't understand exactly what a suppression hearing is all about. It says a suppression hearing is a legal proceeding that determines whether evidence can be used in the criminal trial. The hearing is held outside of the jury's presence and is in pretrial proceedings, meaning that the jury is not going to be present because they haven't even picked the jury yet. So they're going to be defending against conviction. Is a suppression hearing can be used to defend against the conviction by challenging the legality of evidence collected by the police. So at this point, they're going to be challenging evidence that was collected by the police. However many bits or pieces of evidence, I think it was 118 that were gathered in the house. And then, all the other evidence that was either digital or, that was gathered, in the Koberger residence or anything like that. They're going to try to suppress as much evidence as possible, because the less evidence that you have against somebody, the better your chances of not being convicted. Like if you if you try to say, well, what do you have against my client? Well, we have this and this. Okay, well, explain to the court how these two things make up a whole case where it makes my client guilty. So what happens is if you don't have the sufficient evidence toward the end of the suppression hearings and all that, it is my understanding that at that point a plea bargain can be made. The other purpose is to obtain discovery. It says a suppression hearing can also be used to obtain information about the prosecution's case. So at this point, the defense is trying to figure out exactly what the prosecution or the state has toward their client. So it's a big case. I mean, it's a big hearing because it's gonna let people know what they have and what they don't have. And what the defense is trying to do is make it public so everybody can see. But in the beginning, they said, no, we want to gag everything. We don't want this to be shown in the public. We want to seal these things. We don't want anybody to know exactly what's going on. The state stated this as well. So at this point, they're wanting to open this up because the defendant, Mr. Kohberger, is wanting the public to see exactly what the state has against them. And I guess the reason for this would be, as somebody stated earlier, trying to try this in the public forum, which it's not, this is not for that. And some of the suppression evidence that they suppress might have not even been used in the trial. So it's going to drive a lot of opinions, a lot of conspiracy, because they're going to be like, oh, they suppressed this or they moved to suppress that. Well, that might not have even been viable. That might have just been evidence that was collected. So that's what this is all about. The process is the criminal defense attorney filed the motion to suppress evidence. They already did that. The judge holds a hearing to determine if the evidence should be suppressed. That's what we're going to have tomorrow. The defendant and the government present evidence and witnesses. So the defendant gets to present the defense's witnesses and to present the evidence against not being there, or, against what they were accused of. The judge decides whether the evidence is relevant and was obtained properly. So at this point, the judge is going to, try to maintain whether this evidence was gathered effectively or whether it was not. The possible outcome, the evidence will be suppressed. If the evidence is suppressed, it cannot be used in the trial. This could result in the dismissal of the case or improve the defendant's chances of acquittal. So, like I just said, the more evidence that they suppress, the better it is for the defense. The least amount of evidence that's able to be suppressed, in all likelihood, the worse it is for the defense. Evidence submitted, if the evidence is admitted, it can be used in the trial. So that's what they're trying to get to that point tomorrow and the next day. And they're also going to have a Franks hearing. So the Franks hearing is basically a hearing that is about whether law enforcement violated Mr. Kohberger's rights by acquiring certain evidence. Did they break protocol by doing this, by doing that? Did they get the search warrant on time? Did they, did it match the affidavit? Things like that. So it's a very big one tomorrow. So this is basically what they're going to be talking about, what this lady's talking about. So it's a lot of jargon, but I hope that kind of clarifies it a little better. Let me get back to what she was saying. And like I said, I'll take questions toward the end and I'll answer them the best I can. I'm no expert and I'm no lawyer or anything like that. And I'm learning just like you are. So I'm trying to use the knowledge that I've learned to interpret this stuff. So be patient with me.
that would adequately protect the compelling interest. And that's in Oregonian at 920 F second at 1466, quoting from the Press Enterprise 2 test. Here, Your Honor, the interest parties are not arguing for a blanket order opening the court. We are arguing for the court to adhere to this long-established process of determining how and under what circumstances a court could be closed for a hearing. For many of the media outlets we represent, even in national security, child sex assault, and organized crime cases that they cover, the process that we are seeking has been carefully followed. The public and the media have a right to appeal unwarranted closures of a courtroom, but they're unable to determine whether the court is being closed appropriately because the court so far has not made public the most basic information regarding the reasons for its closure. The defendant in this case, in both its January 13th and January 21st filings, seeks an open hearing and asserts that an open hearing is of utmost importance to him. Therefore, any concerns about the closure being required to ensure the defendant's right to a fair trial are.
See, that just doesn't really, it baffles me. It's almost like they're, Kohberger's kind of playing games. It's like, I want this gagged. I want a fair trial. We got to get the trial moved because I can't get a fair trial here in Latah County. So they went through all that rigmarole. They got the trial moved. They went to Ada County. Now they're trying to say, well, I need all this information out in the public in order for them to understand that I'm getting a fair trial in the future. But the problem is, what they've always held on to is they don't want the jury to be tampered by so much information out in the public forum to tarnish the possibility of getting a fair trial. So you can't have it both ways. And I think that's what the judge is going to describe here in a little bit, is that you can only have so much out there without it being tarnishing the potential jurors. And I hope that makes sense.
Moot. And as Mr. Kohberger pointed out in his motion to hold an open hearing, the Supreme Court in Waller held that when the defendant objects to the closure of a suppression hearing, the hearing must be open unless the party seeking to close the hearing advances an overriding interest that is likely to be prejudiced. The burden is on the party seeking closure. That's from Oregonian 920 F second at 1467 and Brooklier 685 F second at 1167.
Because in reality, if the state argues to keep the hearing closed, it's about the perception of what is the state not wanting the public to see. You get the whole game is, it's about causing doubt on the other side. So if I'm pushing to open this up and let the public see it, and the state saying, no, we want to keep it closed like you said you wanted to, the public going to be like, oh, what's the state hiding? Why don't they want it open to the public? Why can't we see? Are they trying to pull a fast one? What evidence don't they have? What don't they want shown? What don't they want suppressed? So it's like a game of back and forth, and it's exhausting. I mean, that's why all these things really, truthfully, are just procedural, and at the end, it's not going to matter until we get to trial, even if we get to trial, because, either they have the evidence or they don't. It doesn't matter whether the public sees it now or later. Eventually, the public going to know what they got.
We understand it, Your Honor. The interest being advanced by the state is concern for information being provided to the potential jury pool and possible inadmissible evidence being discussed in open court. But that is inherent, Your Honor, in any motion to suppress hearing. The whole basis of the hearing is to see whether the evidence should be excluded or admitted at trial. Concern about the public maybe learning about this evidence, and even if it ends up being inadmissible, is therefore not an overriding interest. And absent that some evidence that this discussion that would occur in the hearing would taint a jury pool or provide information that would be difficult to to seat a jury, I think that is also not sufficient evidence for this court to find that.
So let me ask the chat, okay? There seems to be 10 of you in here. How many of you feel that at this point, if they lifted the gag order and all the evidence that they have, the defense and the prosecution, if you were able to see all that, would it bias you in any way, or would you still be able to hold on to your beliefs of what you've thought all along? Like if you've thought that the prosecution had been playing games, they obtained evidence illegally, all this other stuff, then that's going to be your stance, whether you see evidence that counteracts that, or if you thought he's guilty and the defense had been playing games and all this stuff, and you saw evidence that goes against that and it shined a light that possibly he could be innocent, would you change your stance? If you were able to see more of the evidence or information in this case, would you be open to changing your mindset of where it is today, or would you still hold on to what you have as far as what you know and hang on to your biasness of guilt or innocence? I'm asking the chat that because I really am curious. Latina says, I would consider both sides of the evidence to determine. Okay, that's fair. Fairy Princess says, my mind is not set. I think at this point, my opinion would probably be the same, but I would listen. Okay. I mean, and I think for a lot of people, they are at that point. Yeah, depends on what the evidence says. It would all have to be looked at. But the fact that we're not prevalent to any of it, it's kind of hard to maintain one side or the other. And that's what, the fact that these following of games that they play, the defense and the prosecution back and forth, it makes it hard on the public because it makes it seem like, oh, the defense has something that they can put over on the prosecution. Oh, the prosecution has something that they're going to bring out and show the defense and blow them away. Or we're just guessing, So if they have an open dialogue, it would be better for everybody involved, I believe. I don't think it would taint the jury at this point because, like Judge Hippler says later on, if they have heard about the case, they're going to be disqualified immediately. They're not going to be able to serve on the jury. So, I mean, I'm pretty sure there are some people that probably heard about the case early on, but we're 2 years and months later. There's a lot of people who I talk about this to, and they have no clue what I'm talking about. So let's keep going. Thank you so much for your participation.
There's a compelling interest and warrant closure of the hearing over both Mr. Koberger's objection and then the right of public access. It also appears from Mr. Koberger's filing yesterday that the state asserted that Mr. Koberger's acquiescence to the non-dissemination order is somehow a basis for them to argue that Mr. Koberger cannot now object to this closure. Not certain if that was the argument that the state advanced, because we haven't seen their pleading. It's not on the cases of interest website. But as I understand the non-dissemination order, Your Honor, and its purpose, it's directed at comments or statements that are made outside of court proceedings and pleadings, and not at what can be said by the parties or their counsel in the courtroom. And the very purpose of the non-dissemination order, as I understand it, Your Honor, was to prohibit those sorts of extrajudicial comments by people who would be in the know.
Okay, so she's saying at that point, the dissemination order is about what lawyers and people closely associated with the case would say outside of the courtroom. What's being said in the courtroom would be public knowledge. So, I mean, I see his point. I really do. And I'm not going to get into trying to figure out why he changed his approach at this point, because I don't know why he did. But it might have been better to have gone that route all along. Maybe they have something that made them change their mind. Maybe they feel at this point, hey, what's wrong with just showing people what they got and what we got? You know, we really don't know, and I hope tomorrow does
But that in-court
bring a
proceedings
lot of
are
light.
precisely the kind of information that should be available to the public as this case moves forward. Your Honor, I would submit also that there is tremendous public interest, and it serves a tremendous public good for the public to know at the time that it's being considered, the evidence, whether the evidence that the state seeks to introduce at trial was gathered in a method that is constitutional or meets evidentiary thresholds for admission. A motion to suppress may be the critical stage of a criminal case. If essential evidence is suppressed, then the government will not be able to meet its burden of proof at trial. Indeed, Mr. Kohberger.
Well, that's what we just read. That they moved to suppress something because it was illegally obtained or it was malicious in any way obtaining that evidence, and the defense can prove that the state's evidence that they're trying to use was gathered illegally or tarnished in any way, then it will be suppressed. It won't be used in trial. And the same thing on the other side. I mean, she just basically saying the obvious right now because we just read that a while ago.
Made that exact argument in his filing yesterday. The purpose of the IGG was to investigate a criminal case. What is more, without IGG, this case would never have been brought against Mr. Kohberger. The public should know precisely what law enforcement and prosecutors did in gathering such evidence and why and how the defendant thinks that was illegal. The court in Waller, when it was talking about the aims and interests of a public trial, noted that those aims and interests are no less pressing in a hearing to suppress evidence. And then they pointed again to several of the individual opinions in Gannett, the case where many Supreme Court justices opined that if they were addressing the question, they would say there's a First Amendment right of access to suppression hearings, but they didn't reach that question. In Gannett, the comments that many of those justices made was that in many cases, the suppression hearing was the only trial because the defendants thereafter pleaded guilty or the evidence was suppressed and no case went forward. And similar reasoning supported press access to preliminary hearings in one of the few Idaho cases.
So it's the state's burden of truth, it's the state's job to prove that this individual did it. It's not the defense's job to prove he didn't. So it would be as if, okay, what do you have? Well, we have this. Okay, we're going to question the legality of your evidence. Did you gather it with the search warrant? Was it done correctly? Was it signed off appropriately? Blah, blah, blah. This evidence was done correctly. Okay, we're going to keep this. And so on and so on and so on. It's not the defense's. People are making it to be the defense's job to show negligence, and it's not. It's the state's job to show the burden of proof. The defense doesn't have to say a word throughout the whole trial. They're on, they really don't. He could evoke the fifth and not say a damn thing the rest of the hearings and the trial. Not challenge anything, just, because the defense, its job is to disqualify the evidence, to disqualify how the evidence was obtained, to put reasonable doubt in people's mind, the jury, on the state's burden of proof. So that's it. That's all this is. The IGG stuff, if it gets thrown out, it gets thrown out. People are making such a big deal about the IGG, like that's all there is. I mean, They say, well, if the IGG get thrown out, then there's no case. But we don't know what other evidence there is. How they're going to place this evidence together to show the burden of proof. It's not, tomorrow's hearing is not going to decide whether he walks or whether he stays. It's not.
To address access to pretrial hearings, and that was the Cowles case. In Cowles, the Idaho Supreme Court noted that the process in conducting preliminary hearings in Idaho is likewise sufficiently like a trial to generally justify public access. And they pointed to the Supreme Court opinion in Press Enterprise 2, where they state that because of its extensive scope, the preliminary hearing is often the final and most important step in the criminal proceeding. The preliminary hearing in many cases provides the sole occasion for the public observation of the criminal justice system. And that may be the case in a motion to suppress hearing, particularly if either that motion is granted and not sufficient evidence exists to go forward, or even it is denied and a plea deal follows the resolution of the motion to suppress. In a Franks hearing, Your Honor, the court is addressing the very critical issue of whether a law enforcement officer made deliberate or reckless false statements in an affidavit submitted to the court. And prior to holding such a hearing, a court is to determine that whether the defendant has.
So this is what I'm just talking about, okay? Because you take it or leave it. See, you can get my statement in a quarter and see if it buys you a cup of coffee and a ham sandwich. I don't know, but you know, if you were, I played defense in football. I was a defensive player. The defensive job is to stop you from scoring points. So if you're defending somebody in court, your job is to keep them from scoring points that's potentially going to paint the picture to the jury that your client is guilty. So you're going to try everything. Everything you're going to try to not really manipulate, but you're going to use words in a sentence that confuses people. You're going to paint pictures that really aren't there. That's why all these suppression hearings and everything are done, because you want to make sure that everything's done appropriately, because as they said all along, they only want to do this once. And at this point, I believe that the longer that they stall, the worse this case is going to get. And I hope they really do get it underway in August, because the longer it goes, the more muddled the water is going to become, I believe. But that's just my opinion.
Has made a sufficient threshold showing that an actual hearing is necessary. An actual Franks hearing, in my experience, Your Honor, is unusual. On issues as critical as these, whether evidence was gathered properly and whether law.
Look, Tina, I don't think we believe that he's guilty. I mean, I can't speak for other people, but I can speak for myself. At this point, he's presumed innocent until proven guilty. So all this evidence that's being presented against him would be like being presented against you or I if we were in that defendant's chair. We would be in the same place, and it would be a hard place to be. It's a hard place to prove your innocence, because you're not necessarily guilty. You're presumed innocent, but that guilt, if the evidence is overwhelming against you, it's a hard hill to climb. That's what's so hard in this case and other cases. And it's high profile. If this was a normal case and we didn't even hear about it, I'm pretty sure this would have been going to trial a long time ago. They may have pleaded out, whatever, and it would have been the end of it. But I think that all the people involved have wanted this publicity for whatever reason. And that's most important in all of this, I believe, the publicity that it's getting. Because these people have careers that they're basing this case on. Some of them will retire. Some of them are very young that are starting out. And they're definitely going to be able to move on to greener pastures.
law enforcement made deliberate or reckless false statements to a court in gathering evidence, there is significant public interest, and public access plays a significant positive role in the functioning of the particular process as the court outlined in the earlier cases I've identified. It's particularly true here, I think, Your Honor, with the Franks hearing, where there is that question regarding the truthfulness of the officer involved. In any criminal case, I would submit that it's of extreme public interest to know whether a law enforcement officer swearing that they have told the truth in a filing with a judge that will be used to gather evidence that can significantly impact the life, liberty of an accused, whether that law enforcement officer did in fact tell the truth, or whether the officer made deliberate or reckless false statements. I think it would be different, Your Honor, if it were a private citizen who made a misstatement of facts and there was a hearing about perhaps that person. The calculus might be a little bit different, but this is a person, a law enforcement officer who is cloaked with authority and has the ability to seek process, to get evidence, and ultimately lead to charges against an individual. Your Honor, the last thing that the court has to look at with respect to whether or not to close a hearing is whether there are alternatives to closure. And Your Honor, it is a little difficult in this situation for the interested parties to specify what that alternative to closure might be. But sort of looking at the documents that have been filed in this case and understanding that one of the initial concerns with the IGG evidence is the identity of perhaps family members of Mr. Kohberger, I would submit that there are two alternatives at least that might address that. One is that it's possible, of course, to show exhibits on a monitor in a hearing in court in a way that they're not displayed to people who might be watching online or in the courtroom, similar to what is done when there is a piece of evidence or an exhibit that is offered, but it's not yet admitted. Would also
you have to remember that, when you rebuttal, like let's say the defense rebuttals the prosecution's accusations, right? There have to be pieces in your rebuttal to show an alternative outcome. If there are just questions being asked and you don't have an alternative outcome, how does that look like to the jury? Because there must be, you don't have to prove anything, but there needs to be some kind of alternative outcome on why your client would be painted in this light. Like you say he was there 12 times prior. If you're the defense, well, you gotta find a way to either make that not real, make that a false statement, make it, mistaken, try to suppress that, or you have to answer, hey, why was he there 12 prior times? Because if that's part of the evidence and it makes it to trial, you may or may not have to answer that, Cross-examination.
to submit, Your Honor, that perhaps redactions or some sort of general identifier, person one or person two, in the place of a particular name would be sufficient if indeed the concern is revealing the names of relatives of Mr. Kohberger. That's very similar to a process that is done in healthcare fraud cases when we're dealing with individual patients whose records may be at issue in a case, and not a medical malpractice case, but a healthcare fraud case where we're looking at the billings, and those individuals are often identified, for example, by a random number or by a Medicaid identifier number, and not by their name. So their names are never revealed in the course of the proceedings. And so, Your Honor, we would submit that alternatives to closure such as that would be available to the court if the concern is identifying those particular names of people who are extended relatives of Mr. Kohberger. Finally, Your Honor, openness and transparency are more important than ever in maintaining and restoring public confidence in our government institutions, in our courts, in law enforcement, in prosecutors' offices, and in institutions of the media. Open hearings, like an open suppression hearing, are necessary to let the public see how this critical part of our criminal justice process works. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Does either the state or the defense wish to add anything based on Ms. Olson's argument that was not previously presented?
I would like to make a record on behalf of the defense.
Beyond what you did yesterday?
Mr. Carter has- It would be consistent with what I did yesterday.
Okay, but I heard what you did yesterday. So do you have anything new to add?
I don't have new information to add, Judge, other than having the ability to talk with the team about what your suggestion was.
See, her job would be just like a YouTuber. Let's say somebody had given the prosecution the name of Gilter, and she would be labeled as a pro burger, right? So all this has been brought up. All this information that Miss Olson just spilled out. And now Ann is going to speak because she wants to implant the seed of doubt in what she's going to say. So what the judge just asked her, is there anything new that you want to add? Because I heard what you said. Is she getting on there just to grandstand and to possibly, because they're not wanting to tarnish the jury pool, right? But every chance Ann gets, she gets up there and grandstands and just throws all this stuff out there. And for what? If she's not wanting to tarnish the jury pool, if she's not wanting to try this in a public forum, why does she even speak? Hardly as much as she does. You notice Bill doesn't talk that much. The person who he has speaking on his behalf doesn't speak that much. So that should tell you that Ann's job is mostly to deflect the attention off what the prosecution is doing and what the trial is going in that realm. She wants to continue to have that seed of doubt planted in the air, to have that seed of doubt that people hear her and they say, well, you know what? Did you hear what Ann said? Did you hear how rude the judge was to her? They're trying to shut her down. They're trying to shut her up. This whole thing is rigged. No, it's not. He's actually doing his job, unlike Judge, in my opinion, would let her just sit there and grandstand and take up the court's time. And that's not what these things are for. This isn't the trial.
And our concerns about arguing in open court. Would you like me to just address that?
I'm not sure what you're referring to, so I apologize.
So we had discussed that the evidentiary hearing portion of it for the IGG would be closed,
Correct.
but that we would argue the legal arguments in open court if we did not talk about the evidence that was brought out in the closed hearing. And after thinking about it overnight and talking about it today, we do not think that we can parse the argument that way. So it's still our position that all of this should be held publicly, openly in court. And that's our same position with the Franks. The Franks proffer, with the exception that there will be, in the proffer, there will be a need to talk about specific names and in particular names of some lay witnesses in directing the court to the 1,000 pages that were submitted under seal in relation to the proffer.
All right. Well, with
So
respect
that's the
to
new
the
information
names,
that I have.
I'm sorry. With respect to the concern with respect to using names, submit a list of names with initials tomorrow, and you can use the initials.
Okay, we can do that.
Anything from the state, Mr. Thompson?
Because I don't believe that when she speaks, she's really speaking to try to get any point made other than just to deflect the momentum of the other side. Because if she views it as momentum towards their winning today, well, you got to step up and try to stop that momentum somehow. So she's throwing out there, okay, well, we don't want the name brought out. Okay, well, we're just going to use initials. Is that all right with you? Okay, I guess that's fine. So the judge is the voice of reason. And thank God he's objective in this whole thing, because otherwise it'd just be the same way that was in Latah County. I mean, watching those old hearings, it's like, good Lord, shut up. You're not at trial. You want a fair trial, but yet you're putting all this stuff out there that may or may not be true, and you're tarnishing the potential fairness of your own trial. Why would you do that? If you're so adamant and confused, or not confused, convinced that the more information that is put out there, the less ability for your client to have a fair trial. Wouldn't you want to be quiet and let this process go? Do the suppression hearing, do it as it's supposed to be, and just move on with it. Stop creating a spectacle for yourself and your client.
Not for me, Your Honor. Mr. Nye was actually speaking on behalf of the state yesterday. I'll defer to him.
Mr. Nye?
No, Your Honor, nothing beyond what was said yesterday. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate the presentation today. I will note this case is a little bit of an unusual posture in that there was previously a non-dissemination order issued in this case, in which it was clear the tract of the court and at the time the parties was to avoid given the media scrutiny, the potential for impacting the jury pool that exists here.
You're so right. Posture.
Evidence that may ultimately not exist and evidence that may not ultimately be admissible. That order was challenged, I believe, by the press at the time, and the full hearing was held on that, and the judge issued an order on that. The closure of the proceedings thus far have been consistent with that prior ruling by the court, for which the petitioning parties were given an opportunity to be heard previously. I don't think much has changed in terms of the need to protect the jury pool here, given the intense media scrutiny that has and continues to follow with this case. Part of the rationale presented to the court yesterday for opening it was in
Nice
order
card, T-Bird.
for the defense to make their case to the public. It's exactly why it's not open. We will be challenged under the best of circumstances of obtaining a jury that is not been overly exposed to this, and in particular exposed to evidence that ultimately may not come into this trial.
So, what do y'all think about that statement right there? The potential jurors may be exposed to evidence that may not come into the trial. What do y'all think about that, chat? You know, do you think that they're going to be able to get an unbiased jury at this point? Yes or no? Do you believe that they're going to get an unbiased jury? They're going to be able to get 12 people that haven't heard about this case or have any belief one way or the other about it. Yes. Okay. Nope. Not right. Poor guy DNA in the worst possible is. No. Okay. Brazilian nuts. Nice. Yeah, that's right. I mean, we all want the truth at the end, you know? Yeah, I agree too, because you don't want innocent people's names out there in the public forum to be harassed, you know? So hopefully that, you know, they are able to redact the people's names in the IGG tree, you know, if they do it by initials, or they're able to just, you know, family member 1, family member 2, things like that. So who knows? T-Bird had a nice picture though. That was a nice car.
I am, as I told the parties yesterday, particularly sensitive about closing things when we don't need to. And I think that there has been to date a over caution in asking that I seal things by stipulation that perhaps don't need to be sealed. And I've asked the parties to stop that, frankly, and to provide better rationales as to why I should seal what they're asking me to seal. That said, with respect to in particular, the IGG issues, particularly where I don't exactly know what the evidence will be forthcoming, I am concerned about the potential impact on a jury pool. In this case was moved to this court because of the defense's assertion that they could not get a jury pool in northern Idaho that would be unaffected by the case, even with the non-dissemination order in place. The media here in Ada County.
What he just said, the defense wanted to move the trial because they felt that they couldn't get a fair trial in Latah County. And now they want something different. At what particular point are they going to stop wanting and just go with it? I mean, I understand she's fighting for her client's life. I understand he had the death penalty over his head. I'm glad she's fighting that hard for him. If he ends up being innocent, then she did a great job. If he gets the death penalty off the table and gets life imprisonment, if he is guilty, then she did her job. It's just hard to watch all these things, you know, because it rears up so much ugliness in the YouTube streets.
Is as, if not more, intense. And so I think there is need to be careful when we are addressing evidence that potentially is not going to be evidence in the case because of suppression motions in limine and the like, which is the concern that I have in particular with the Frank's hearing, as that does appear to be evidence that may not come in, and it may not be evidence that has been particularly disseminated to date. As I talked with the party, there are other issues that I've asked the parties not to address specifically as it relates to some of the motions to suppress that doesn't need to be discussed specifically. For example, the evidence produced by the warrants they seek to strike. And is that for that reason, my intent has been and continues to be that we will have as much of this hearing open by way of streaming possible. I have not and will not open the courtroom itself to parties in the courtroom because
That's understandable.
Close it if I find or the parties suggest to me, and I agree there's a need to discuss something at that moment outside the public's reach, which is easy to do by simply going offline for a minute.
Hello, Hoppy.
And that's what I intend to do tomorrow. In particular, the evidence with respect to the IGG, I think at this point, it's appropriate to, and I will issue an order shortly to keep that out of the public domain for the time being. Now, that may change down the line. My order certainly on the issue will ultimately give some information so that people can follow what happened from a legal perspective. But some of the factual details, until I know what those are, and I've seen that, I can't make that determination better. And so I think that this is the best way to proceed because I can't unring a bell once it is rung with respect to potential evidence that in particular may not be evidence in this case. And so my intent would be to proceed with the evidence portion of the Franks hearing as it relates to IGG in a closed environment. I think we can decide at that time before we go online whether we can have the IGG portion of the Franks proffer publicly. The intent is, I think we understood from discussion yesterday that the rest of the evidence and the arguments, both on Franks and suppression as it relates to everything else, we should be able to do public. If there's an issue that is specific, like Ms. Massoth brought up, about the need to mention a name that we need to protect from unwarranted harassment, which has been a concern in this case, we can certainly refer to them by initial.
Yeah, I concur with that because the last thing you need is anybody else being harassed in this case. I mean, I believe that the people of Idaho and Washington and every other state around there who has any kind of linked or networking through another person has already been dragged through the mud enough, you know? I mean, the last thing you would need is people on that IGG list to be found out. I mean, there would be people just harassing them to death, just trying to get some kind of nugget to have something to present. I mean, they don't need that. They probably didn't even ask for it. They probably don't even know they're on that list. You know? As I was doing a live one day, I was reading about, you know, would you really want to know if a family member was potentially a killer? How hard would that be for you to take, you know? I agree with that.
Initial, particularly if you give me a roster with initials or other identifiers you'll be using, then I can follow along. And I think that's the better way to proceed so that we can do as much of this in open light as possible. So I appreciate the petition. I don't think it has changed. I appreciate the defense has shifted its position to a degree here. I'm concerned that the purpose of the shift is to try the case publicly as was offered to me. That doesn't give me comfort, to be frank. But for the meantime, until we can, I can get a handle on the exact evidence that does in fact come in, given that it is potentially
Thank you,
evidence that
Brazilian.
will not be admissible, and anyone who hears about it may therefore be removed from the jury panel. I think it's better that we proceed in this fashion for now.
May I raise one other issue, Your Honor?
Briefly,
Thank you, Your Honor. So first, Your Honor, with respect to the non-dissemination order, respectfully, we represented the interested parties at that time as well. In our understanding of those proceedings, it was amended a couple of times. The second time after we moved to intervene and challenge the dissemination order then in place. And as I understood Judge's the proceedings in front of him and the non-dissemination order, the purpose of that was to preclude extrajudicial statements and was not to preclude the attorneys from saying things in court that would be made public. The goal was to make sure that there was accurate information from people knowledgeable about the proceedings, and that was the forum in which they could do it. And I would also note that Rule 3.6 does have sort of this rebuttal portion to it that allows, if the defense, if there is a statement that is made, under Rule 3.6, the defense is permitted to make public statements to sort of counter that. And I think that's probably what the defense was getting at in its submission to the court.
I mean, I like the fact that there's not back and forth between the attorneys, like they're not going at each other like they were in Latah County. That there's not a lot of theatrics. It just cut and dry. They're actually doing what they need to do. They're doing their job. The judge is stepping up. Whether you like the judge, whether you don't, he's in control of the courtroom, and they're getting on with it. I mean, that's what we all want, right? We want this to continue to go on and get to the trial eventually. Is that not what the end game is?
And finally, Your Honor, are the court's statements in court today intended to be its specific findings regarding the manner in which the court is to implement the Press Enterprise 2 test, or will there be a written order so that my clients can be adequately prepared to decide what next steps to take?
Yeah, as I indicated, I intend to issue a written order following today's hearing. I don't think that what you said accurately reflects my understanding of the defense's position yesterday, but I appreciate that. I do understand Judge's prior order to be dealing with extrajudicial statements, because that's who he could control at the time, were witnesses and parties. But I also understand from a review of the record, there has been a concern throughout this case of exposure to evidence that may ultimately be inadmissible, and that prior proceedings were closed for that purpose, consistent with Judge's ruling at that time. And I agree it would be an extension of that, but in general, I think that's where they've been throughout this case. So, at the end of the day, regardless of the outcome, the likelihood is everything will be unsealed. And before then, as soon as it can be done in a way that protects the case and the jury pool, which is the parties' rights, both parties' rights to a fair trial is paramount, as is the public's right to know. But I also have to weigh that against.
Let me ask a question for the chat. I appreciate, first and foremost, how everybody's getting along in the chat. I'm so glad that everybody's able to discuss what they want to discuss, and there's no bickering or anything. I'm loving that. Thank you so much for being adults in this chat and respecting the rules of the mods and everything else. Second of all, I want to ask you, if everything, once again, while we have more people in here, if everything was released today, if the gag order was pulled, and we were able to know all the evidence, right? Everything that would have been turned over in discovery, would you be able to handle?
Excuse me, darling. I have a message.
Sorry about that. Would you be able to? God Almighty. Would you be able to handle what had been hidden from the public for so long? Would you be able to handle if they had sufficient evidence that that tied him into it, or if they didn't have sufficient evidence, would you still be able to handle that? Yes or no? That is my question to you guys. Would you be able to do that? Hey, Sirius, thank you for being here. Yeah, that got me a little bit, Texas. You're very observant, buddy. I'm really glad that everybody in here is getting along. That's awesome to see. Please hit the like button if you're enjoying this.
Ability to have a fair trial by getting a jury panel that has not been tainted by the publication of widespread publication of evidence that may not be admissible at trial. So it's a bit of a narrow path for the court to have to tread, and I appreciate that, and I appreciate that that calculus isn't always in the direction that one would hope, but I am doing my best to make that calculus in a way to ensure the rights of the parties and to ensure a fair trial, and that we can do that as quickly as possible. All right. So I will issue an order forthwith, and tomorrow we will
Yeah.
come forward with public hearings just as soon as we can. Further, if after hearing that evidence, I determine it doesn't need to be protected, I will order a transcript be prepared, and I will order that that be produced. But in the meantime, I think I need to take this course, so I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
I mean, I thought that was handled pretty well. I don't know. You can give me your opinions or your thoughts on today's hearing if you believe that it was handled pretty good today, or if you believe that, you know, things could have been done differently. Let me go over the Frank's motions with you guys. That way you understand what that is about. Nina, you want to come up here to talk? Are you still in the chat? I see you gotta talk. I come on. Wow. I was supposed to have one tomorrow, and I chickened out. I couldn't do it. Typically, I couldn't do it. I could not do it. So I had to chicken out. So Nina, the link is in there. If you want to come up, Kim, if you want to come up, if anybody wants to come up and talk about this with me, you're more than welcome, as long as you're respectful and you're not calling names and things like that, because things are going rather well. So let me read what a Frank's motion is. A Frank's motion is a legal document that challenges the validity of a search warrant. So in this case, we have issues with some of the search warrants that the defense is presenting, stating that some protocols were not done correctly. Some of the evidence was handled without a search warrant. It's used when the defendant believes that a warrant has issued based on false or misleading information. There she is. So, how it
I
works?
started not to come up. You said I had to be respectful.
Oh shit! Are you in that mood tonight?
Excuse me, sweetheart, but you have a message.
Hey, hush. How it works is the defendant files a Frank's motion alleging that the warrant application contained false statements or omissions. So with this motion, it's alleging that the warrant contained false statements or omissions, like they omitted the positive parts, or they lied about what they found or how they found it. The defendant must prove that the false statements were intentional or reckless. So how can you prove intent? I mean, that's a hard word. You know, that's a hard thing to prove, is somebody's intent or being reckless. You know what I mean? That's why this hearing is so hard to get. The defendant must also show that the warrant would be unsupported without the false statements. So if there was not any false statements in the warrant, there'd be no need for it. You know, like the warrant would be useless. If the defendant is successful, the evidence obtained from the warrant can be suppressed. So if tomorrow, if they find that motion, if they do a Frank's motion, that any of the evidence was gathered in any way intentional or reckless, and it's suppressed, then they won't be able to use that. And why it's important is the Frank's motion protects citizens from unreasonable searches and seizures It's a powerful tool for defense attorneys, especially in cases where evidence was collected during a wrongful search. And how it got its name, the Franks motion is named after the 1978 Supreme Court case, Franks versus Delaware. A Franks motion is usually part of a suppression hearing, but it can also be the subject of its own hearing. It's important to work with an experienced federal criminal defense lawyer. Blah, blah, blah. Okay. So, Nina, what do you think about what you heard in that hearing today? Anything different than what I was saying?
No, I mean, it's like I said in the comments, as far as like the IGG, and I really didn't know how to get it across, but there's hundreds of names that came up in that IGG. So
Mhm.
we're talking, what if somebody's daddy is not the real daddy? Is it our place to be airing somebody's dirty laundry that comes up in a DNA that they didn't even submit to, maybe, or they just got tied up in it? You know what I'm saying? I mean,
Yes. I mean,
so
that was,
I can understand the IGG being sealed, but CC Moore also made the statement with that when they got the 1-to-1 swab from the buccal swab, that the IGG is out the window anyway.
sorry about that.
Excuse me, darling.
Yeah, excuse me, darling.
This is my other phone. Let me turn it down. Imagine being woken up in the middle of the night with that shit going off. I used to have, the Batman movie where he asked, or the Joker asked, why so serious? In his voice, he's like, why so serious? Imagine being woken up to that as a notification sound in the middle, the room dark, and that wakes you up. That used to just like, whoa, kind of blew my mind a little bit. So, I mean, there's a lot of good statements being made in the chat. Latina said the judge should not be biased and hear whatever both sides want to say, even if it's stated 10 times. I really don't believe that he was being biased. I think that when it comes to these hearings, they have such a tight court schedule. It's hard to deviate from what was already discussed that was going to be discussed. What do you think, Nina?
Well, I mean, I think that, you can run anything in the ground. You know what I'm saying? And this judge doesn't seem like the type that's I don't think he's gonna listen to it more than once or twice from either side.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I don't agree either that he's about that BS, and I mean that's a good thing. People should be okay with that because I mean, I don't know about you, but watching those other hearings in Latah County was like watching ice melt.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I
It was
mean, I
terrible.
think that he's a firm judge, but I think that it's gonna go in both directions.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
don't think that he's going to be one of those judges. He doesn't care about setting precedent for future cases. I mean, he only cares about this case. He doesn't care about being the judge that got a new law or did this or did that, or, it's just, let's keep it with this case. And I don't care about all the other bullcrap.
Right. I agree with you. On that. We're supposed to have Frank up here from Let's Be Frank. But I don't know what time it is in Amsterdam. We had discussed that earlier, but it may be middle of the night over there at this point, or middle of the morning. I don't know.
Now,
So
he's the
maybe,
one that interviewed Enon, right?
no, I don't
No.
think so. No, he used to be on Detective John's
Yeah, that's
channel.
who I'm talking about.
He interviewed Enon?
Yeah, Enon Harsh. As a matter of fact, it was Jeff said yeah.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's the one where they actually point out, you know, that when he talks about certain stuff, the way he would grin and stuff like that.
Mhm.
And that, as a matter of fact, that is the only time I've ever seen Frank. That is on Enan's interview.
Oh, I didn't know that. I'll have to go look that up. I wonder
Yeah,
if he
it's a
still
really
has
good
it.
interview.
I wonder if he still has it up or it was his old channel, because he did have another channel, you know. Yeah,
What
hopefully.
would you say his name was? Frank?
Yeah, Let's Be Frank is his show.
Wait a minute. Who's getting a lice test? Who's who's
Holy shit.
okay?
You get light shampoo and a TB test.
What the heck? What did I miss?
Thank
Aw,
you,
T-Bird,
T-Bird.
that is awesome.
Thank you so much. I like that car. I like that car. Yes, Frank interviewed him and he was the first one. That's awesome.
Because
wish
that's the interview where Enan talks about that he picked up the two hitchhikers and it was like Halloween and everybody was in a costume and that they got sort of skittish because he had a knife or something like that.
Yeah, yeah. Infinity, you know where Frank is at this moment?
Or does anybody know what time it is in let's see. What time is it in Amsterdam?
I don't know. Siri, what time is it in Amsterdam?
Yeah.
You'll never scroll back far enough. Enan equals Spicoli. Like it's almost like those birds on Toy Story.
Oh my gosh.
It's 5 a.m. here in Europe.
Oh wow.
Goodness. Oh no.
So
Well,
let's see, it's 10 to 5, so that's 7 hours. So yeah, if you want him on, you might want to go on. You might want to go live at like noon one day.
yeah, I'll Infinity, if you can deliver a message to him next time you see him, tell him we might get together maybe this weekend sometime, maybe Saturday or Sunday. If you can do that for me, thank you so much. I'd like to hear his thoughts on that interview. I had no clue he interviewed Enan. That's
Oh
awesome.
yeah. Yeah, it was really interesting.
So was it like the interview that the female did, or was it a lot calmer?
No, I mean Frank actually holds his feet to the fire. I mean, you know, he asks him some pretty potent questions. I mean, you know, he even, you know, like I said, he points out, you know, like maybe the smiling and, you know, the costumes. And I mean, you know, he does, you know, now that this is when I first came to true crime. So, you know, I maybe didn't know very much and I thought it was a good interview, but in my opinion, it was a good interview.
Right, right. I can't believe I missed that. I mean, I thought I was on.
It's
on
him,
board with
Enan, and another guy. And I can't think who the other guy is. Or maybe it was a girl.
See, Rondi in Texas saw it. Everybody's seen it but me. Goodness.
So, Rondi, there was a third person. Who was the third person? Oh, wow.
His cat?
You want to pet my cat?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Unsolved crimes. That's it.
Unsolved crimes. Who is
Unresolved.
that? Unresolved crimes. Okay.
Yeah. That's what he did. But yeah, there was a third person, and I can't remember who that was.
Keep talking, Nina. I'm going to turn on the heater. It's getting kind of nippy in here.
Keep talking. That channel's gone now. Uh-oh. I guess, well, I don't know if anybody's got it saved or not. We might can go back to the, what is it, the archive machine or whatever, the Wayback Machine.
Yeah, it's getting kind of nipply in here. This case is, is as weird as it's been with everything that's gone on in social media and everything. I believe that, once they do open things up, I think, it's either gonna invigorate people's trust in the judicial system, or it's gonna infuriate those that have thought all along that they didn't do their job and they did. You know what I mean?
The only thing that I hope for is either way it goes, guilty or innocent, is that it is so profound that nobody can doubt it. If he is set free, then people say, you know what? He's innocent, let him go. If he's
Yeah.
guilty, then they say he was guilty, let him go and get his punishment. I hope that it's not ambiguous to where we spend the next 10 years on YouTube still arguing about it.
Right. What use would that be, Because either way, if he's guilty, they're automatically going to appeal it. So it's not like, I've heard a lot of people say, well, you're condemning a man to the firing squad. It's like, you're acting like the moment if he is found guilty, that they're going to take him out back and shoot him. It's not going to happen like that.
Jeff H says that he has Frank's interview with Enan.
Oh, that's awesome.
Well, the thing about it is, I think mitigation is going to play a big part in it.
Yeah, I agree with you.
And I think that, and it's like I said in the comments, it's a win if you can take a death penalty case and put it to life in prison, then you've saved his life. And as well as I do, Gage, you have to be alive to recover. Well, if you are in prison, you got to be alive to get exonerated.
Right, exactly.
So, it's a win if you can save his life.
I can't remember who was talking the other day. I don't know if it was Dr. Gary that was saying he wanted to see him. Who was it? No, it was John. Detective John was saying that he would rather him be alive to be able to
to be interviewed and to learn from it.
Yeah, to be able to learn from it. That is, I agree with that. If he's willing to open up,
Right.
which I believe eventually he will, because I believe he's that narcissistic enough, don't you?
Oh yeah. I honestly believe if he gets found guilty, he'll be interviewing.
Did you hear that?
I did.
Imagine waking up to that, Nina, in the middle of the night.
I think I'd rather wake up to Sweetheart.
Well, let me see. Jeff just
Hey,
sent
guess
it.
what?
What?
15 days, no cigarette.
Good for you. Good for you. And I'm gonna answer that email you sent me, Nina. I didn't ignore it.
I ain't worried about that.
I didn't have time today. I was quite busy. Oh, I'm worried about it because I wanna do something,
Yeah.
But let's see.
Yeah, typically that's the last I heard was that he was taking classes at WSU. Oh my gosh, burp zombies.
What is that?
I don't know. We've gone from lice shampoo to burp zombies. I'm going to stop reading the chat.
Truth always makes me laugh. It's like she'll be talking about what she ate for breakfast here in a minute. She eats good, you know that?
Heck yeah, she does. Hang on for a minute.
I'm downloading this, so hopefully we can hear it.
Give me 1 second. I'll be right back.
All right. I'm downloading that interview, so possibly we can hear it, and that way if we get in touch with Frank, maybe this weekend he can come up on panel during the day or something, and we can discuss what the interview was about and how he felt about it and things like that. So let me see if it downloads. Jeff, I hope it doesn't have a virus. I will send you a mason jar with flatulence locked inside of it.
I'm back.
Okay, here we go.
Nah.
We got it.
Now we got jar of farts.
You heard that, huh?
Wow. So the jar of farts with the grizzly bears checking for lice and shampoo with the zombie what? Zombie.
What about zombies?
Oh, the burp zombies.
Can y'all see that on the screen?
It's all white.
I know. I don't know why it's done that lately. Let me see if you can hear it.
Fuck no. We're live.
Can you hear it?
I honestly need to get my fucking composure because I'm honestly fucking pissed. No. I'm not gonna work that out.
I don't know why it's doing that. StreamYard pisses me off when it does that shit. Are you still here, Nina?
Yes.
What?
I gotta stay out of the comments.
Gurgle and Gus? What?
Your comment section just went to hell in a handbasket.
In the farts in the bottle, right? Started it all, didn't it?
Yes.
I knew it. I knew that started.
Oh, Deb, boy, I tell you what, Deb came in like that. Did I come in at a wrong time?
Oh, you can see it now, right?
Yeah.
Oh, here we go. Can you hear it?
This could be 5 minutes. That is honestly. Just keep in mind that I sent Ian the link, so if you join instead, you can actually join.
Okay.
If I'm not mistaken, is this supposed to be the Enon?
Yeah.
Okay, because I started to say,
A certain individual. It takes me to a certain lead. And it's not to get anyone out of the way or in the way on their own investigation. It is is because I feel something and I try to act on that. And like I said, you call it a hunch or whatever, but usually, I am pretty good at that. I am pretty good at the things that I feel that quote unquote, I guess, just feels good. It sounds really strange and it's really hard to explain actually, but that's why I love the thing that I actually do. That's why I feel, for example, really proud that I am correct in certain cases before even the news stations are.
I mean, it's like, it's just, I mean, personally, like, I've almost never believed the media, you know, it's like,
I'm genuinely pissed, so I contact individuals. What's up, Ian? Hold on.
What's up, dude?
What's up, man?
Thanks, dog. Oh, you know, just chilling, dude. Just woke up. Relaxing a little bit.
Let me just rant for a minute, though.
We're up.
Fuck, I totally lost my shit because of you. Thank you. Anyways, guys, I promised you Ian, so here's Ian.
Hey, guys.
Now, but I have to continue for a second. Then I will give the floor to you because I'm genuinely pissed because I talked to, like I said, I do, for my feeling, I do proper investigation, right? I try to cover the facts, and I only cover the facts. And I try to call the fucking coroner of this case, and she totally fucking stonewalled me, and that is fine. That's totally fine. But there's one principle within that you do not do. I try to ask questions that are already known. I try to ask specific details of something that she already knows, that is already out there, but I want to have confirmation.
You know, I like Frank. I like how direct he is with his thoughts and how he seems to be very methodical with his words and how he's trying to get his point across. What do you think, Nina? Don't you enjoy the way he comes across with his stuff?
Like I said, this is the only time I've ever seen his channel. And I liked it the first time I saw it. I mean, he's very straightforward. He doesn't mess around. He really doesn't give him like any kind of leeway to like lie his way out or anything like that. And, you know, I mean, if I knew where he was, I'd subscribe to him now.
His channel is called Let's Be Frank.
All right.
Let's Be Frank. Can you put that in the chat, mods, please?
And apparently, just because she had the law practice, she's not obligated to speak to me. Like, I knew that she was there because I actually called the Moscow PD, and that's where I got the most information from today, guys. Honestly, I got the most information from the officer from the fucking Moscow PD. Not by the news stations, not by fucking anyone, but for the proper example of fucking PD. And I totally get that Enan can tell me better than this, that Moscow is a small college town. But if you need information from apparently a large news firm, for example, Ashley Banfield, which I love, by the way, but still, they totally got Enan's information wrong. Yeah, it is totally just fucked up. Because if we are led to believe that news stations actually are more about the clickbaits, more about the advertisement, because we can tell it in the story of yesterday. I mean, we covered in that yesterday that apparently Steve Gonzalez said that there were apparently gouges instead of stab wounds, and the coroner that I tried to call like fucking multiple times is not the one who apparently you said that. What are you led to believe?
I mean, personally, like I've almost never believed the media. You know, it's like I almost feel like at this day and age, it's almost expected that they're going to do some clickbaity shit. You know, like we've been seeing this on Fox News for decades. You know, and so you really, I feel like you really got to take it with a grain of salt because you know they're not. You know, they hear everything secondhand, and you know it's really crazy because they've been, you know, this murder happened a while ago, and it's like they're like constantly on this blog, just like looking for crumbs of information, you know. But it's like it's all about the money to them, you know. Like they get their money off of the views, so they're just hunting for anything that can get someone to click on their article, you know what I mean? And yeah, it's kind of ridiculous at this point because it's like it's so long, and it's, you know, you think that the little bit of media attention is pretty good at the beginning because it might like bring some awareness, like maybe some facts that aren't known, but you kind of wonder as it drags on like how much it actually helps like law enforcement and to actually find the killers.
No, exactly. See, and that's why I invited you, in fact, to get like more aware of the aesthetics on where you live, for example. Because a lot of individuals see that's what I think is funny, because you have this Brian Entin, whatever that is. I mean, you know him probably because you watch the news, right?
Not very much. Well, not until recently, I guess I should say. But I'm pretty much, you know, I don't really pay attention to social media, my phone, the news really at all. Pretty much usually got my own stuff going. So until recently, I kind of just been ignoring it. But yeah, I look it up every once in a while. You know, I'm not completely aware of it. Sometimes killings will kind of like grab my interest. You know, there's like the Gabby Petito case, and there's like this murder podcast I was listening to, and it's kind of interesting just to like, you know, listen to like unsolved mysteries. I remember like wondering for a while with the Gabby Petito, was it his boyfriend? Was it some crazy like random person? Because there's like another murder in Utah, and really, I mean, it's like it's just fascinating the unsolved mystery because it takes a while to catch them, right? Because they can't just, you know, get a suspect. They have to like find a suspect and then have enough evidence to where they can actually like put them behind bars and not have like an O.J. Simpson fuck up, you know. And so, you know, they usually like find someone. I feel like it takes a while after that for them to get a bunch more evidence before they want to release it.
But Ian, kind of introduce yourself. Who are you? What did you witness? And go into this example.
Yeah, I'm Ian Harsh. I grew up in Pullman. I was born in France, but I moved here before I was like 1. I was homeschooled, went to high school, into Pullman High, graduated there. Did a bunch of traveling, came back, started doing cooking, a bunch of cooking. I recently moved to Moscow a couple of years ago just because it was cheaper. I could get another bedroom for my office, and then I had vaulted ceiling so I could juggle in here. And yeah, I've been like working in Pullman because it's, you know, Washington wages are a little bit better. Some of the restaurants are better too, I think. And yeah, so been living in Moscow for a couple of years. Pretty much a regular dude, in my opinion. I just worked late, so I got home kind of late that night, and you know, as this like regular tea, you know, wind down routines, drinking some teas, juggling, practicing, we played some video games, and then I went to bed, and like I was, you know, it takes me about an hour to fall asleep, and I, you know, like thinking back, I thought like, you know, I heard like a little scream from like that vicinity, but it wasn't like.
Hold on a second. Nope. You're talking really fast, so if you could just hold on a second. And not go all HG on us.
Yeah, so you know, I was winding down after I got tired, like I was in bed, and I was just kind of, you know, like falling asleep. And it's interesting because, you know, like normally on a Saturday night, you hear a bunch of screams, right? There's like just parties, people yelling, people walking by. That particular night it was pretty quiet. Like I heard, and like I kind of just dismissed it as the party scream, like when I was dozing off, but it wasn't like, I don't know, it didn't seem super unordinary to me, you know, but I was also just like half asleep. And the only other thing I remember that night was, you know, there was like one neighbor that returned home while I was sleeping and closed their door. You know, so I heard like 2 door shuts, the car door and the apartment door. Another thing I just kind of dismissed, and I still don't think that's important. And yeah, that's kind of, the only like other thing I found that was kind of interesting.
What do you think about what he said so far, Nina? Yeah, let's be respectful in the chat and the panel guests, even if they're not here in person. We agree to disagree. It's going great. There's a lot of people in chat, so let's keep it going. Let's keep it classy. What do you think, Nina?
I think I wasn't paying attention.
Okay, we'll move on.
Is a couple weeks, I don't want to say a couple weeks, but a few weeks before, I picked up a couple of hitchhikers on campus, right? They were trying to go to the next party and it was really cold and they're like, we're not trying to walk or whatever. And they were going to a couple houses down there, going to like a party over there or whatever. And like the girl's pretty cute. She was kind of hitting on me and I was like, oh, this girl's pretty cool. The dude in the back was like, he was a little bit sketched out. He's like, yo, like, people know where we are. If you try to kill us, like, people know where we are. And I was like, okay, that's kind of weird, bro. I'm just like, talking to this girl. She's pretty cute. And like, you're like thinking I'm not going to stab you. I'm literally just giving you a ride here. Oh, I get some gas first. So maybe they were like a little bit sketched out. We took like a detour. But,
Hold on. When was this?
This is like,
Hey, Frank, I'm going to put the link in the chat. That way you can come give some explanation to your own video. Welcome for being here. Let me put it in the chat. There you go. So he's talking about picking up two people on campus.
Right.
And he said one of them was hitting on him. And she was
Right.
kind of cute.
Yeah, that's the one that's the two that I was telling you about. He's talking about picking up the hitchhikers and taking them to the party.
Well, he said he heard two car doors slam, right?
Right.
Okay.
What did you witness? And go into the subject example.
yeah, I'm Enon Harsh. I grew up in Pullman. I was born in France, but I moved here before I was like 1. I was homeschooled, went to high school into Pullman High, graduated there. Did a bunch of traveling, I guess when you're hitchhiking, whatever, but they were only going like, like half a mile or whatever. But, after events, like, I've been thinking about it. I'm like, yo, like, what if this dude was threatened by somebody, like, what if there's like some guy like going around who's making people feel really uncomfortable? So I don't know. I don't really think anything of it. I think it was just like the dude was really drunk. He went on a detour for get some gas and he thought something, but I don't know. Like after these recent events, like maybe there is something more to it. I don't know.
So I obviously got a couple of questions, and I hope you'll have the time for that. Otherwise, I would not ask you to do a lot.
Oh, you're good. I got about 15 minutes.
That's fine. That's fine. What is the nearest camera within the Greek area?
That's a good question. I don't really know, honestly. It's Moscow. I don't think there's very many cameras, like in general. My apartment didn't have really any lights or cameras. Like it was like a really kind of dark area. They recently put up lights and like motion sensor cameras that go out after like a certain hours, I think. I'm sure some like neighbors had some cameras, but this is Moscow. I'd be surprised if there were any in that area. You know what I mean? Like people leave their doors unlocked here before this. People leave their windows unlocked. Like this is a safe town,
No, fair. And within that house, you obviously are a neighbor, right? And you live in the brick part of the apartment, right?
The brick part? No, I think the apartments I'm in are wood, but.
Well, no, that's fine. Just to get a clear picture.
Yeah.
Anyway, because I have seen like videos that only extend like to the wooden part of in front of the house. But if you go in front of the house, is there any way that you can go on foot? Is there like any walkway?
I think so. I think there's, it's like, I think there's like the driveway like out front. So I think you just go out front, and I think most of the side is open. Like there's a driveway out front, but I think all houses I think all sides of the house are accessible. Because I know when I would like.
Also from the back then, so you do not necessarily.
Yeah, the back. So that's where I think possibly the killer came, because the back area is pretty desolate. You know, most of the part.
Is this the one where he talks about giving Kaylee the champagne or something, like a bottle of? He gave somebody a bottle of liquor. Is this the one where he's talking about that?
Now, see, I was thinking that one was on Hidden True Crime.
Okay.
I'm not sure though.
Because you remember what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, he takes him a half a bottle.
Yeah, he said he takes him a half a bottle of liquor.
Yeah, cooking wine.
Cooking wine, okay.
But it was expensive cooking wine.
Yeah, okay.
The people who live in apartments, they park close to their doors, which is on the other side. And if you go the other side, then like it's like kind of like a dark parking lot, and it's right above that house. And usually it's only full when there's like parties and like other people are trying to use this parking lot. But like I would go over there and spin fire sometimes, just because it's like, you know, it's like kind of off in the corner, you know what I mean? But yeah, I think if someone was doing it, that would be a place to go in and out without being seen or really heard. The only people that go over there is like.
Did he say he would go in the corner and spin fire? Hey, AR, thank you.
Yes.
You too.
Yes. As a matter of fact, I don't know if you've ever researched that, but I mean, that's actually it's an art, and he's really good at it.
Well, I've seen people and other creators, you know, showing him spinning the fire sticks or whatever.
Right.
I heard that at the very beginning. I'm like, I was thinking the fire stick, like, you know, the Amazon fire stick.
Yeah.
What the hell, you know? But yeah, so he said he would go to the corner up there and spin fire.
Yes.
Okay.
Have you ever read his AMA off of Reddit?
No, maybe we can just.
Oh
maybe
my
we can
gosh, his AMA is crazy.
Well, maybe we can discuss that someday. Here we go. Great job, Frank. Great question, buddy.
People take their dogs out and stuff, and I've heard many people taking their dogs out at 3 a.m. or whatever. So yeah, the back of the house was definitely, that's where the yard is too, and that's where they have their small little gatherings. So it's like you can park anywhere on that side of the hill, and you can just walk down, and there's their sliding door.
So Eden, I'm gonna bother you one more time because I totally forgot this to ask this actually on Facebook though. Can you send like an angle just to me privately though, because I'm curious about that. Just an angle on where you live and where the house is, so I can get like a big picture out of that.
Yeah,
because I always thought, to be honest, that you lived in the brick area. So if you go like into that brick apartment part, like behind the building on the left side, I thought you lived there. But apparently,
yeah, that's where I am.
So
I've never really noticed, but yeah. See, the inside of my apartment's wood, but it probably is brick. But yeah, that's where I'm at. So, but yeah, I can send you some pictures too, and you can just like, you know, kind of scope out the area in general for your personal interest.
No, but go ahead, tell your story, man. Like I said, I want to hear your story. And,
I mean,
getting a lot of hatred, of course. But.
Yeah, I guess after that, you know, I was you know, I'm pretty much a hermit. I spend all my time like in my house, going to work. Sometimes I go out with some friends or whatever. But like, you know, I was just living my life. And then I was taking out the trash out one day, and some random dude approached me and you know, asked me some questions, and he was talking about the white Hyundai, and you know, so I was like, oh, this guy's got some information. Like, should like talk to him a little bit. So, and then you know, I was just like talking to him like, oh, it's like Boise Statesman, probably small time. And then like I go to work the next day, and they're like, bro, like you're famous on the internet. And they're like make those quotes and so yeah, and I was just like, whoa, and like it's just like looking at all like the Reddit conspiracies and like, you know, like looking at some of the news articles, and like, I mean, like it's hard not to laugh at like some of just like, you know, the straight insanity of how much this blew up. I'm like, yo, like I'm just a dude taking out trash. Like, yo, I like was thinking really hard on the case and thought I might have heard a scream. Like, I had like, and I like, there was like a few.
So he just said right there, he was thinking very hard. He might have heard a scream. So he had shared this on his Facebook page, right, Frank? Nina?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. And this is when people were giving him hell about it, and he went back and redacted that, correct?
Yeah, and see, then he did that crazy AMA on Reddit, and that really put him out there in the limelight.
Okay. Yeah. Because I remember that was a big deal. Everybody was showing that he said he heard a scream. And then he went back and redacted it and put something else. I don't remember what he put.
Because I think that's also when he talks about seeing the black SUV with the rims and the out-of-state tag and stuff like that.
Oh, okay.
Like vehicles I saw that I could remember that I tried to like, say just in case it would help. But like,
that's a black luxury. I just saw that comment.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Yeah, I was like, I was just thinking of like any cars that I normally don't see that night, and I was like, that's the only one I can remember. So,
Have you ever been contacted by NASCAR PD?
I wonder where that car was parked. Did he say, Nina? Did I miss it?
Oh goodness. I don't think he said. I think he just says that it's like, I think it was close to 1122. I don't think it was at the apartments. I don't think it was in the back parking lot.
I always thought he would have seen it like, I'm saying it, where, where those cars are usually parked along 1122 where the house was, right? And then there's a two line, and those cars are always parked right there. I wonder if he saw it right there, or if he saw it in the actual driveway or anywhere near there.
Or did he really see it?
Right. Exactly. I mean, this could be part of the don't know till we see the trial, right?
Well, I mean, I'm not saying that. I think that, I think sometimes people put themselves in that 15 minutes of fame.
Yeah.
And maybe it doesn't have anything to do with the trial at all. It was just putting them injecting themselves.
Right, exactly.
And then it could be the absolute truth and it be right in the middle of the case and nobody know about it.
Kim, what is a high-end SUV? Would that be like a Tahoe or Excursion?
I figure oh heck. Boy, I went blank on the SUVs there. Never mind.
Excursion, maybe a Cadillac Escalade, maybe?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Okay.
I don't think they ever released that information because they didn't, for obvious reasons, they're trying to keep their investigation private and stuff. But yeah, they came in, talked to everybody. And I talked to them once after that, and
thank you, Deb.
Yeah, that's it. I think someone was telling me they're coming by yesterday and trying to say what?
Really, yesterday?
Yeah, I wasn't home though, so if they tried to knock on my door, they didn't get me. So yeah, they said the FBI was going around asking questions.
For obvious reasons, I'm gonna ask you: are you the killer?
No, I think that's obvious to anyone who's not
Frank just went out. He swung for the fence on that one, didn't he, Nina? I'm going to ask you point blank: are you the killer?
That's what I liked about the interview. I mean, like I said, that's definitely a question that you wouldn't expect someone to ask you.
Right.
And then they sort of like, okay, everybody's like, but he laughed. Well, think about it, how off guard you would be.
Yeah, it's like, that was uncomfortable, right? That's how you'd handle it, you'd think, right?
Yeah. And I think that his laugh is nerves.
Yeah. And that word "like" is a nervous tick.
Yeah, see, mine is I'm trying to get out of that,
Yeah.
completely stupid or a flat earther, or I don't know. I guess it might look kind of crazy, just because of my life or whatever, but I don't know. The recent article too, I was looking at Fox News. They said, and like I said, I take everything the media says with a grain of salt, but they were saying that the knife was kind of like a loose term to describe it, because they're now like saying it's more of like a bigger, like, blunt object from like a really strong man. So apparently apparently there was like big gate gouges in them and stuff. So I'm kind of picturing, like, it's kind of interesting in this area because
So at this point, the murder's already been committed. The information's out there, so he's reciting the big gouges and stuff like that, right?
Right. I mean, that's what I'm saying is, the inserting himself. I mean, because see, there you go, But I think that I don't really think he knew anything. I think that, I mean, I'm like Jeff. He talked too much. He was too open. I mean, come on. I mean, everything was too open and too
Right.
for him to be guilty of anything.
Right. Here we go.
the surrounding areas have a history of lead poisoning. So we've got like some limited locals and like surrounding areas. We've got like some lead poisoning issues, and I'm kind of just like, almost envisioning like we also got a cult here too, which is kind of interesting to me. And then we have so I'm just like imagining like some like hunter dude maybe.
Cult?
Yeah, we've got there's these people.
The whole incel thing, right?
Say what?
The whole incel thing. At least that's what I read. Or
well, we have this community called Christ Church here, and they're like they're nationalists. They advocate like violence under God, and they're also they wrote a book about revisiting the concept of slavery and described like slavery as a handshake between the white and the black man. And they're pretty sexist. They're like, they think your wife should be disciplined or she won't like, and they're like, if your wife's not hot and you don't, it's because you didn't like discipline her enough. And like they're pretty crazy. They've got a lot of weird ideals. And a lot of the girls that leave their church come out pretty traumatized, and they have like they've got like a history of like molestation and like rape that happens over there. So like they're also really rich, and they're national too. So they've been buying a lot of the Moscow buildings and then trying to put their businesses in it. And they say they're trying to turn Moscow into like a Christian town. And so they definitely have an agenda. This dude does like speeches, and he's like really well known, but like, to most of the community members, he's like completely batshit crazy. Now his name's Doug Wilson. You guys can look him up. He's got a bunch of crazy books he's wrote. So I don't know, but like, I'm not saying they did it, but I'm saying like I could see like, something associated with them could turn into a killer or something. But also I'm also thinking, like our lead poisoning issues, and then this like, this was describing like a big man. Like in Idaho, we've got a lot of like big hunter dude vibes with like blunt objects that I feel like could do this. So
I mean, he is a local, and let's try to refrain from name calling in the chat. I mean, it's going pretty respectful. Let's respect the panel guests, even if they're not on panel directly. We can have our opinions, of course. We agree to disagree. So let's keep it classy. We're doing well, so let's continue having this interesting conversation with Mr. Harsh, whether we agree with him or whether we don't. I mean, I never really dove into Enan. I mean, I listened a little bit to the interview he did with that female, but I could not get past all the repetitive words, Nina. So I don't, he's saying a lot more right here without repeating himself over and over and over,
I think he was very uncomfortable on Hidden True Crime.
Yeah.
I think it was more like with Frank, it was more like maybe two buds talking. You know what I'm saying? I
Right.
mean,
Right.
to where Frank made him feel more comfortable.
Right. Well, I mean, it's going good. It's flowing pretty well, you know.
I mean, come on, Hidden True Crime, she would intimidate me. And you know, I don't get intimidated.
I don't even know who that is. I mean, I'm clueless to some of these creators.
Right.
But
Well, I
what
mean,
place?
she's one, you know, it's her and her husband. Her husband's he's either a psychiatrist. I think he's a forensic psychiatrist.
Oh, okay. I
Yeah.
know.
I mean, you know, come on, they would intimidate me.
Yeah, I know. I know.
And like
I,
I said, with Frank, you know, he made him just feel comfortable, like he was just talking and, you know, just so good job, Frank.
yeah, here we
Like
go.
imagining someone just like, you know, like going off and like, I don't know, hiding in the bushes or something. Like they're waiting for like a deer and then like waiting for like the whole like neighborhood to get quiet and then go in and do that shit. You know what I mean? So that's my most recent theory, but I don't know. It's a weird ass case.
Before I try to stick to the facts, obviously, but what do you mean?
Yeah, I mean it's so interesting to think about because like one, stabbings don't really happen in Moscow. They don't happen like this, and also it's like, you know, it's kind of scary because it happens to sorority girls, and it's like it happens to these like normal ass people. You know, kind of makes you feel like it could happen to anyone. You know, like I don't know. It's just for such a non-evidence crime, these seem like such an unlikely target. You know what I mean? Like if it was like cartel profession.
How did you get that there was no evidence, though?
I mean, I don't want to say no evidence, but like not enough evidence to like close the case. And you know, I've been on this case for like how many weeks now, and like it almost feels like they don't have like, you know, even a suspect, you know. And I don't know. I feel like most of like the murders or violence that happens in this area is located pretty quick. You know what I mean? Like when I was in high school, there's a dude that was shot and they found him like within like 2 days. You know what I mean? And so like for this case going on this long, it's really kind of fascinating.
What do you think what happened, though?
I think that, you know, that dude Jeremy too, they attacked him in the beginning as well. Do you remember that guy?
Oh, that poor Jeremy guy, boy. I tell you what, I
mean,
felt bad for him.
He was the first one that I remember hearing because they were talking about some dude went down and gave a DNA. See, I was getting him and Enon confused at the very beginning.
Yeah, the Jeremy guy actually went and gave his DNA. He was like, let's put this to rest right now.
Yeah, and people were just attacking him.
Yeah.
And then Enon came up, and then, you know, he was everywhere. So it was quite a circus at the very beginning. And it's interesting to hear all this again. It puts a lot into perspective. I'm thankful for
Oh, yeah, I mean, I have to say that, you know, one of the videos that I did was called Back in Time. And when you go back and you really look at some of the stuff, it puts a lot of stuff in perspective.
Yeah, because we've heard so much over the years. The original stuff that came out at the very beginning before the gag order, you know, stuff like this. I mean, I've never even seen this one, and I'm sure there's a lot of people that never seen it. So it's interesting to hear another person interviewing Enon other than one interview that everybody's pushed around. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I know. You want to come pet my cat?
No, I told you no already. Stop it.
You know, I really don't know. Like, I'm thinking of a few possibilities. You know, maybe like some dude went in to like rape the girl, and they weren't like expecting to find her boyfriend there, so he just like went crazy and killed a bunch of people. I'm also thinking maybe just like a serial killer who gets off on killing girls. Maybe like some dude who's like really professional, is really good at it, and goes around just doing it. I'm also, I mean, I don't want to, cause any more suspects, but I was looking at that incident from the grub truck. I wonder if there was like, a friend of someone who's got beef with them. Say what?
Believe me, he's not it. He's not it.
Okay, word. Thanks. That's reassuring, actually. But yeah, no, I don't. It's so bizarre to me because, like, when I think about, a motive behind it, my mind it draws so many blanks. You know what I mean? So it's hard to think outside of like psychopath or, because like I don't know, just the thought of like a high schooler that had some beef with her, or like someone that had beef from college with her or something, like it just doesn't make sense to me, So I'm really leaning on some like professional killer or I really don't know, dude.
Serial killer.
Hey, Frank, when he said that, you're grinning from year to year. What were you thinking at that point? See, hopefully we can get you on panel so that I can ask you these questions and you can respond in real time. You're grinning from year to year. When he said professional killer, what were you thinking? I'm curious to know because you have this look like, So please let us know as I play more of this. There's your question, Frank.
I like a professional killer, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, I guess they're the same thing, right? Yeah, it's weird, dude. Like, I don't know. When I think about,
I'm gonna give you. I did this once before, and it actually gives up a lot of insight. See, you live there. A lot of people don't actually. And if you see, I can turn myself into the mind of a killer and do like a probable thing that I would do. But you actually live there, so you have more like probability on the things that you would do. Because I do not think that individual went in the front entrance in any single way. I think
you think it was multiple people?
But that's my opinion.
No. I think it was from the back for sure. I think they went in through the sliding door. I'm almost like, I don't want to say I'm certain, but that just makes the most sense for me. You know what I mean? Because that's the most accessible area to the house, right? And I feel like sliding doors would be easier to break in than front doors.
What were the aesthetics of that night? I mean, you came at home. I mean,
it was surprisingly
drive the car.
It was surprisingly, I was driving. It was surprisingly empty. Sometimes we have like cops will like post like speed traps on that road. I think it's Blake Road because it'll be like drunk college kids are trying to catch, but they weren't there. So, and there weren't a lot of cars in the parking lot. Usually at that time, there's a lot of cars because there's like parties around the area. But it was for Saturday, it was surprisingly empty. You know what I mean? So that was like the only thing I really noticed strange about that night.
That cop also said that, right? Heather? I mean, remember that entire body cam footage that we said?
Mm-hmm.
It was surprisingly silent.
Yep. And they were all out in plain clothes that night too, so they were hiding.
Ooh.
Yeah, so weird.
I was actually joking.
Lean in.
Oh, good.
So like leading to a month ago, November 13th, when all of this happened, you didn't witness any confrontation or parties or anything whenever you came home, late night, nothing leading up to
I think you need
this?
to repeat that.
Yeah, sorry, you were cutting off a little bit.
Okay, let me repeat it. So, leading up to the night that all this happened, you being a close neighbor, you didn't notice any confrontations, anything in the weeks leading up to this?
No, I was at work from 1 p.m. to like about 12 a.m. and then I stayed a little bit after, just bullshitting with some coworkers. So yeah, I was at work all day, and then I went home, and it was already pretty quiet by the time I was there.
So you obviously I've been getting a lot of hate. And I know the individuals that gave you a lot of bullshit that actually contradict to the things that were actually are being said, especially that fake video. I think that's disgusting. Did an entire video out of it. And like I said, I'm an honest dude, and I thought as well that just by sheer text that you were a sketchy motherfucker. But you're all right. What would you like to say to this individual that I love my personal, because I know he's watching? Because what would you like to say to this individual that made this video?
I mean, I haven't even seen the video. I try to ignore most of this stuff, but I mean, lol. Fuck damn. I mean, I don't know, dude. It's kind of fucked up that you're trying to get fame off of, like, you know, making fake videos, especially when it's a murder crime. But I mean, fuck, dude. Do what you do, I guess. Like, if that's, I mean, I just think it's kind of silly. Like, I don't think it's helping you at all. But good luck. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. It's crazy, dude. I'm not gonna try to hate on the people hating on me, but like, it's kind of ridiculous.
No, exactly. You see, and that's why I'm giving you a podium, because a lot of people see. I can't get over all the hate that individuals actually tell, because I actually want to hear a genuine story. And it's not my first vote, because I did it with the Delphi case, and I'm doing this with you as well, because the story always has two sides. It's not always one-sided. And generally, people are judgmental, and that's fine. That is totally fine. But it's up to you if you actually give a fuck.
For sure. I appreciate that, dude. Yeah, I agree too. So thanks for the podium, dude. I got a jet. I got some things I gotta get ready for. But thanks for hosting me, dog. Thanks for your show, and
we'll talk to you later. And actually, thank you.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, good luck with the rest of your show.
Thank you.
Peace out.
Very interesting. Very interesting. So he did dip out. He dipped out. So I guess that's the end of my show. I thank Frank and that other creator for having the tenacity to interview Enan, whatever your opinion is of him or was of him. And everything that we discussed tonight, I had a lot of different thoughts and opinions and factual information, I guess. I appreciate everybody in the chat, and thank everybody for being respectful and being able to discuss things in an adult manner rather than going at each other and just trying to just show whatever you want to show. I mean, at this point, we can agree to disagree, and if you feel what you feel, that's okay. But, you know, all this hatred and rhetoric and everything that goes along with it, there's a place for that. And, you know, hopefully it's not in my chat. So those of you that came in here, you're more than welcome to continue to come in here at any case that I've discussed or anything that I've discussed, because you're obviously interested in different types of modalities and things like that. I'm no expert by any means. I am still learning. So you can take my information or you can leave it, whichever you wish. But thank you so much for being in here. Y'all have a wonderful night, and I hope to see y'all soon. Maestro, cue that music. And let's get out of here. See y'all soon.